Let's chat about finding LCM, or the least common multiple. The least common multiple is the smallest multiple that numbers have in common. And again, just like with GCF, you might do this with 2 numbers or 3 numbers. Not usually more than that, but you could. And in 6th grade, you'll typically see this used in comparing, adding, and subtracting fractions, which isn't necessarily taught in 6th grade, but is often used in 6th grade. And again, in word problems. And so again, we have 3 ways, just like we did with GCF, we have 3 ways to find the LCM: by listing the multiples, by using prime factorization, or by using the ladder method. And so we'll start and just use this example, listing the multiples. So students would take 8 and they would list all the multiples of 8 until they find the smallest one that the numbers have in common. And then 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. If you use this method, and if students use this method, I would make them list the multiples of both numbers, at least in the beginning. And eventually, when they notice that they really only need to list the multiples of the largest number, then I would let them list only the multiples of the largest number. Because as you see, we get to 40 faster with the bigger number. 40 is the least common multiple, and we get to it faster when we list just the multiples of the larger number. Okay, so that is how you would list the multiples. That's all you would need to do. List out the multiples till you find the smallest one that they have in common, and you've got your least common multiple. And so, as I said, we will most typically see that if we're doing something with fractions and maybe we want to add or compare 3/8 and 7/10. And we can't do that typically unless we have a common denominator. And the way to find the common denominator is to find the least common multiple. We can use prime factorization. So actually, you know what? Let's go back and look at the 6 and 16. The 6 and 16 is where students sometimes would get mixed up a little bit with the multiples because they might not know all of the multiples of 16. And so for 6, they might, they'll go 6, 12, 18, 20, 18, 24, 30, 36, 40, 42, 42, 48, 54, 60, and then they'll go to 16, and that'll be a little bit harder because they don't know their 16s. 16 is 16, and then 32, and then 48, which is awesome. Hey, 48's there already. They don't have to keep listing and listing and listing. One of the pain points with the listing of the multiples is that students don't know how many to list, and that does get to be a pain. So again, if they kind of notice, hey, they get to it a whole lot faster with the big number, then they can eventually just start doing that with the larger number. Okay, prime factorization. Let's go 6 and 16 with this one. And just like with GCF, we will break these numbers down into their prime factors. So prime factors for 6 are just 3 and 2. So 2 times 3. And then for 16, we break this into 4 and 4. And each of those can be broken into 2 and 2. So we've got 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Okay, so with greatest common factor, we only used the ones that they had in common. For least common multiple, we still use the ones that they have in common, so they have a 2 in common. And then we use all the other factors that are there. So 16 also has 3 more 2's, so we use those. And 6 has a 3, so we use the 3. And then we multiply all of that together. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 3 is 48. And we can get it that way with the prime factorization. So in this case, again, we're using the factor that they have in common, and then all the other factors. And that gives us our least common multiple. Right. And then the ladder method, I guess I'll put it over here. 6 and 16, we're going to do this exactly like we did with the other ladder method in GCF. 6 and 16 are both divisible by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 16 divided by 2 is 8. That's it. 3 and 8 have nothing in common, so I can't divide anymore. So my least common multiple, and you can kind of like do an L here. Oopsie, L. My least common multiple is all of those factors that they have in common and they don't have in common. Same thing with prime factorization. We use the one they had in common and all the others that they didn't have in common. In this case, it didn't bring us all the way down to all the prime factorizations. It just brought us down to 2 times 3 times 8. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 8 is 48. And again, we get 48. And so that is it for least common multiple. We've got the 3 ways that you can find the least common multiple: using multiples, using prime factorization, using the ladder method. Let me know if you have questions, and in the next video, we'll look at a word problem for least common multiple.